welcome to Lead Live, reminding you of your personal genius and how you think in order to actualize what you desire.
Well, thank you so much for joining us once again for Lead Live, LEAD standing for Leadership Excellence and Achievement on Demand. We have a very important topic today, and it's especially near and dear to my heart. And we're going to be discussing the broad area of wealth mindset, leadership mindset, really. But also, we're going to narrow in on saving the Black middle class, changing our relationship with money. And we've got someone who literally led us to come up with that topic because of his work, because of his literally stellar leadership efforts over a number of years, even when folks had no clue that he was predisposed to this level of greatness. Now, when he comes on board, mind you, he's going to be very humble, and he's not going to perceive himself or present himself as though he's great. And yet, because of what he's chosen to do throughout his life, even from early childhood, he demonstrated probably what his parents imagined, greatness. And so, without further ado, I'm actually going to share his bio even as I bring him into the studio. No, not to embarrass him. I want you to see him right away. Hello there, Joel. How are you?
How you doing, Elnora?
Well, we both know we pivot, we don't panic, right? Both had some technological issues earlier. So pleased to have you here right now.
Thank you for having me on your show.
Oh, without a doubt. And as I present you, I want people to know that you're a licensed real estate broker, you're an investor, you're an educator, you're a mentor, you're much more. You began investing in real estate over 35 years ago, but you began really in business as a child. And I want you to tell people that story in a moment, at least in brief.
Okay.
You also authored I am so appreciative to be able to have read twice, Developing a Wealthy Mindset, Learning the Personality Traits and Core Values Needed to Create, Maintain, and Grow Wealth. Previously, you were CEO of the Black Silicon Valley Chamber, and you literally have led a number of seminars we call the Wealthy Mindset Scales Secrets to Wealth. And it brought you not only local, but regional acclaim. You specialize in commercial LLC syndications and real estate investment properties. Now, you've also demonstrated expertise in a number of areas, which is in part why you're a managing partner. You're skilled at strategic planning, you're a public speaker, you're in the management arena, but you're broadly in the leadership arena. And you graduated from San Jose State University. That's not minor. And yet, when you told me your story, I love how you conveyed the essence of who you are in that little, as was evidenced in that little boy. So before we get started with the meat of the story and focusing on saving the Black middle class, can you share something about us that most people would not know? Certainly it's not on your website and it's not in social media.
Wow. Well, I mean, aside from the book, I
Yes,
mean, because
yes.
the book, I basically kind of spill it all out.
Well,
I
not
mean,
all of it. Tell us,
really?
tell us a little bit. Yeah, not all of it.
Well, again, you know, I certainly started at a young age, as I at the end of the book. I don't know. I don't deserve being where I'm at in many ways because I look at my friends and my family and my money is just totally different than theirs. Now my lifestyle is the same as theirs. I live a middle class lifestyle, love the middle class lifestyle, live in my middle class neighborhood and all that stuff. And I think only because of the fear of me, as we had talked about previously, the fear of me being broke or being homeless is what drove me to not drove me to become a multimillionaire. That's never been my goal. And I never had a number. Ever in my life, I've never had a number. it actually, even just when you were speaking about me, I felt uncomfortable immediately when you started saying those things.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I'm not broke, and I'm not going to be homeless, and that's really, for me, that was all that mattered. Just in a nutshell. Yeah.
Well, that story of was it your mom? You were walking someplace as a little boy and you saw
Yeah.
the
Right.
can you tell that story quickly?
So yeah, so basically it probably was about and I'm born and raised in San Jose Hospital, San Jose State. But I probably was around 5 years old, walking downtown with my parents, and we came across a homeless man, and back then that was not so common as it is right now.
No.
So, and I just looked at this guy, and I was like, why is he dressed the way he is, and why does he look the way he does? And I told my parents, I said, what's wrong with this guy? And back then, of course, we didn't call them homeless; they called them hobos. My parents said, well, he's a hobo, and I was like, well, what's a hobo? He's like, well, he doesn't have a place to stay, and he struggles with times to even eat. And at that moment, I was like, I don't ever want to be a hobo, ever. So from then on out, I basically did everything in my power to not become a hobo, which the opposite of not having money is having money, or having a poor, broke, unwealthy mindset versus a wealthy mindset. So I just kind of transitioned into it, not knowing that that's what I was doing, but I was doing it. And then by the time I was 8, I already had a full-blown candy store in my garage, kicked my parents' cars out of the garage. The entire garage was a candy store. And I had more candy that you would see than a 7-Eleven. Whatever you walk into 7-Eleven, have that at least that one whole aisle of gum, candy, or whatever. It's like dedicated to junk food. My garage was converted to one. And basically by nine years old, I could afford my own bike, my own stereo. I was self-made by 9, and it really hasn't changed.
I think that there's so many compelling aspects to your story, and I wish I could remember them all. But one in particular is when I don't know if it was when you were in school, grade school, and there was an opportunity to bring your entrepreneurial nature to the school, right?
Right.
And tell that story in brief, especially the kind of reaction you got, and then you just shined on the reaction, just whatever, and kept moving. Tell us about that story.
So in junior high school at that time, we had so many kids going to school that they had to go on what you call double session. They probably don't even know what that is now, because actually schools are shrinking, but population as far as kids going to school. Anyway, so we have this overpopulation of kids going to school, so they had to split the session. Once they split the sessions, there was no lunch program, all the normal things that you would have in a school. And so there was this void, and entrepreneurs always seem to find the voids, right? Taking advantage of a situation or an opportunity. And what had happened is I saw that and went to the principal and said, hey, look, how about if we do a candy store? And of course, the principal, being an administrator, not necessarily an entrepreneur or even a businessman, I don't know what his background was, but he's looking at me kind of like, what? I said, well, we could buy candy wholesale. I know of a wholesaler. Again, I've already owned a candy store now for 4 years. So I know I know the wholesaler, the distribution, the whole channel to get the product there. And I said, well, I can order the wholesale candy and do this. I can set up a candy store. So at least we got something to eat. And the guy was a little bit overwhelmed, the principal was. But the way I was speaking, and because every time he had a question about, well, what about this? I had the answer, because I've been doing this for a while. So he then turned me over to a faculty advisor, the math teacher of the school. And once I crunched the numbers and ran it all by him, he was like, this makes total sense. And so we actually sold stock. The students just said, hey, buy stock so we can use that initial capital to purchase the candy and the product. And of course, I knew what we were getting into, and I'm looking at this market. Basically, you're talking about 400 students that can't go anywhere. They can't go off campus. So we got this captive audience. So I bought as much stock as they would allow me to. And my buddy that was working with me at my candy store at the time, Paris Saison, bought So between the two of us, we owned over 50%, around 51%. But we had over 50. We had total control. Named myself the general manager, and then basically day one, because of all these kids having to buy, we made so much money, sold out of all the candy we had to and within 2 weeks, they basically shut it down, and the school took it over because we were making so much money. And they were like, "Oh no, this is insane," And so the school took it over. We got paid handsomely, and for that 2 weeks. But had we been all year, it might be a whole different world for me. But that's what had happened. And so those are the kind of things that I did.
Well, let's back up a little bit. And I have feedback. I don't know why. Apologies to the audience. This is all part of a powerful story. So before you had a flourishing business in your parents' garage that became your site of operation, ground level zero, what did you do to get the distributor to bring the goods to your place? What did you do?
So again, I chalk it up to just truly being naive, not knowing what I'm not supposed to be doing. Because I made a phone call to Coca-Cola bottling company, the actual distributor, and I said, "Hey, I'd like to order some Cokes." And of course, they can tell by my voice that I was 8, 9 years old, and they're going, "Well, wait a minute, kid, we don't do that. You need to have a license. You have to have a business." And I said, "Well, I have a business. I don't have a license." But what happened? Whoever I was talking to on the phone found it extremely amusing. And as a joke, probably just said, "Let me just go ahead and send this up the flagpole." And next thing I'm talking to the sales manager, and of course then he says, "Well, it's a 12 case minimum or whatever the minimum buy is for a store to bring in. If you're gonna have an 18-wheel truck come down, like like you see the beer trucks or the cola trucks or what have you, you see them with that pallet and they're pulling on that forklift and they're running stuff around." And I said, 12, no problem. And they're like, "Really? Okay." And then I gave them my address and all that stuff. And basically they started delivering product. And I was also doing this on the candy level. Found a local wholesaler, and they would make deliveries. If it was, as long as it met the minimum requirement of the delivery, they were delivering it to my house. And that's how that started rolling. But I didn't know that I wasn't supposed to do it. And to my parents' credit, they just went like this. They weren't going to say that this kid's crazy or that you shouldn't chase your dreams or anything. They just let me go. And I'm sure they both were scratching their heads going, because my parents, both middle-class hard workers. Dad worked at Lockheed, put in his 30 years. He was a San Jose police officer prior to that, and they were just that stereotypical middle class, work for the company, get your pen, get your pension, call it a day. And that wasn't me.
And yet, in that stereotypical way, your parents inspired you too. You spoke about both of your parents in remarkable ways, in positive and healthy and constructive ways. You also pointed out your mom and how she is just very particular around numbers, how that inspired you.
She's an accountant. And to this day, she'd probably tell you that I need to work on a lot of things because I'm an executive summary guy, right? I'm a dreamer. I'm an entrepreneur. So I look at something and go, "Oh, and do I count the beans? Yes. Once I get to a number that it just makes sense, I just go. But I don't really get into the particulars and making sure that, okay, this needs to justify this and I need a backup receipt for this. And of course, as an accountant, that's what you do. So we have a tendency to clash, but it's all in love, but she's just doing her job and showing me, "Joel, you just made $100 mistake or you made a 25-cent mistake." That's the problem. Is I'm not worried about a quarter, and she's going, "Well, it's not balancing. And even if it's off 25 cents, that means there's something wrong." And I'm like, here's a quarter. And of course she's like going, "That doesn't make any sense to me. You just can't do things like that. We've got to find out what's wrong." So, so that I have that from my mother. And then my dad was, African-American male, I don't want to say a hustler because he worked at Lockheed and all that stuff, but he had that in him, right? Just that whole time of just trying to make ends meet. But we, as African Americans, we just got to work harder there. You know, traditionally, that's just the way it is, and that's who he was. And my grandfather literally was a true hustler. He owned, you know, houses of whatever. A lot of gambling, a lot of things are going on there. So he came from that background. My father wasn't that, but he was, you know, basically one generation away from it. so I really am a product of my parents. You know, I've got that entrepreneurial spirit of my father, and then I've got, you know, this really looking at something and just black and white, you know, counting the beans. And I'm not as good as either one of them, you know, in their respective traits, but I have enough of both of them to where, you know, I can make some things happen. And I think that's why they were a good couple too, because they kept each other in line. One's a dreamer, one's going, look at the numbers, you know, they want to, and so it worked out for them. So
beautiful.
Yeah.
Can you say what inspired you? Because you've been leading since you were that young boy.
You know, it's true. And it's sad because it's fear. It always was fear.
It was always fear.
Always fear. Fear didn't stop for me until I hit 53, when I literally I owned a, you know, because again, I don't come from a background, again, we talked about the whole education system, and I can really go off on that, but I'm of average intelligence. That's probably the best way to describe me. Nothing more, nothing less. Just, I was always in the middle. And even music was my love, and I loved DJing. That's how I made my money in high school and in college, was DJing. And then, but I was good. I wasn't great. You know, there were so many great DJs around in San Jose at that time. It's just mind-boggling. So I wasn't getting the best gigs, but the difference was, of course, that whatever money I made, I was always trying to find a way to grow it, because I wasn't making a lot of money as a DJ, you know. And then, make a long story short, is that here I am trying to DJ. I'm not getting in the top clubs because the top DJs are getting the top gigs. I might be a Monday or Tuesday night DJ at a club, and you know who goes out on a Monday and Tuesday, right? So I'm that guy. And then I realized it's like the only way that I'm going to become the DJ on Friday and Saturday is to become a promoter and do my own shows and rent out the nightclub to where I'm the DJ. So because, you know, if you're the boss, you hire yourself. So that's how I ended up being the Friday and Saturday night DJ, is I took over promotion. And then when the club owners were going, hey, this guy's doing too well, because, you know, we don't really need him to promote our club, I lost that. It was like, well, then what do I have to do now to keep my DJ job? I've got to buy the club. So then I bought a nightclub so I could still be the DJ, because I'm not as good as the DJs that are out there. And then the landlord goes, you know, Joel, your lease is up, and I'm sorry, we're not going to renew it. We're going to do this B. Dalton bookstore and do this major makeover. Then I had to buy the building to put my nightclub so that I could still be the DJ on Friday and Saturday night. So I was realizing the only way that we can control things is we've got to own. We've got to own. And, you know, we can go, you know, certainly talk about that. As soon as you own, then you've got a whole lot more control. Or in my case, I had all the control, because all I really wanted to do is just be the DJ, but I wasn't good enough to be that DJ. So I had to buy the club, buy the building, and control the narrative so that I could just be the damn DJ. And that's really what happened. That's really what happened. So it never was an ambitious thing of like, oh, I want to be this multimillionaire and I don't want to be this, that, and the other thing. It just really came down to my passion, and then how can I make sure that I can enjoy, you know, do the things that I love to do, because there's too many other people that are making those decisions telling me I'm not good enough, or if you do this, maybe I'll let you have the job. And just like how we go through in the workforce, we're always kissing up or having to impress somebody for that review or that you know, that promotion or that raise or whatever. And you realize real quick, if things aren't happening the way that you want, maybe that plan B, which I certainly try and encourage, is that you end up buying the company. Find a way to control that narrative, and owning is that way to do that, or certainly the way.
I have a host of questions, but I want to get to a couple of things that you reference in your book.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to be great to start. And you conveyed you're not great, although we can question that.
Yeah.
Yet have to get started to be great, quoting
Yes.
Zig Ziglar, right? And then you go on to say, money spent goes, it's gone,
That's right.
while money invested grows.
Right. Right.
Makes me think about how you've, in your talented way, without even thinking about it and planning for it,
Right.
you've amassed millions of dollars
Right.
of assets,
Right.
not just liquid, but real
Right.
hard assets that
Assets.
will
Right.
continue to grow.
Right. Right. Right.
And it makes me think about another statement you make near the middle or the end of the book, and I don't know if I could find. Finally speaks to defining asset, right?
Right. Right.
Where you define asset as something owned that can provide future economic benefits. And then
Right.
you say money is a seed, mindset is the water. Okay, I want you to really take off on mindset is the water. What do you mean by that? And then we're going to get in deep, folks, for those who came in to hear about the Black middle class.
So,
We're going to get in very fast.
so again, without I don't care who you talk to, what multimillionaire, billionaire, and we're talking purely money, right? Success based on money. I mean, there's lots of other different successes, but today we're just talking dollars and cents. So before any of that happens, or the commonality between all of these people, if you interviewed 1,000 of them or what have you, is that their mindset, they understand how to grow money. Really, they truly have an understanding of that, because their efforts or their actions always seem to be in a vein. And as we were talking about, as I was talking about in the book, really an expenditure, anything that's coming out of my wallet, your purse, our bank account, when we spend money or an expenditure occurs, it's going to happen in 3 different categories. One, it's going to be spent on stuff. And again, stuff is defined by something that doesn't have no value or very little value once you purchase it. Now, we all have to buy stuff. I mean, to me, again, we're talking dollars and cents. Food is stuff. If I've got $100 and that's my net worth, and I just buy something to eat and it costs me $10, what happens once I pay for that $10? They give me that food. That food I consume, it's gone. So my net worth is $90. Now, granted, if we don't eat, we die. so it's a need. But understand it, when we're just talking about money, it's stuff. It's something that has no or little value. Or if I don't eat it and wait there a day or two, then it's rotten. It has little or no value. Socks, clothes. But the problem is, those are needs, and we have to do that, and every one of us have to do that. The problem is with the poor, broken, unwealthy, they spend all their money, or 99% of their money, on stuff. Some of them it's just to eat. But if they have a little bit, then they work their way up to a TV set or a PlayStation, drugs, alcohol, or whatever. Again, something, as soon as you buy it, and you consume it, and it's bad for you or whatever, or a PlayStation or a TV set. As soon as you buy a TV set, it's worthless. That's all stuff. So that's why the poor, broken, unwealthy stay there, because 99% of their stuff is spent on stuff. Then you move over to someone that's making a little bit of money, getting out of college or what have you, or just getting a nice raise. They buy liabilities. That's the middle class. So again, my first column is stuff. Second one is liabilities. And they buy things like cars and boats and jewelry and, LV bag and Prada shoes and Ferragamo and this, that, and they buy all these brand name things. And we're talking about the biggest consumers of the middle class. It's the middle class that make the wealthy wealthy. That's really what it comes down to. And all your marketing and everything that you see on TV, all this branding, I'm going to get in my Mercedes and wear my Rolex, and I got my Nikes. And if you're mentioning brand names, you're already in trouble, because you're spending extra for that brand which they convince you that that's somehow superior, when all you really need is some shoes and a car and some clothes. Don't mention things by names, or a watch. Don't tell me you got a Rolex. Just get a watch. So that they're buying liabilities. So the first two, what we talked about just earlier, the first column of stuff, we're blowing our money. Literally, it's blowing. The middle class, because they're bragging about all the stuff they're wearing, and you see their money, they're showing off their money, they're showing money, right? And then the last column of the wealthy people who invest in assets, they're growing money. So again, you think about it, look at all your expenditures, you're either blowing, showing, or growing. And the wealthy will grow, and the middle class, they blow and show. And that's why, you know, the median household right now in America is about $120,000 of net worth. And that's just, and then African Americans, $12,000. And by 2053, as we talked about, they will be broke. Because
Zero.
That's right? They'll be at zero. So because we're blowing and showing. We love to blow and show off. We make a little bit of money, and then we need to show, check out my new car, look at dress for success, and all those things there. But none of that money that you're spending is actually growing. It's either blowing or showing.
Well, one thing that you emphasize, and I 100% agree, and that is the importance of each one of us being our own CEO. That means the chief executive officer of our lives.
That's right.
Literally,
That's
deciding what our vision is, deciding what the specific goals are, deciding what the plan should be, leveraging the experts out there, whoever they are, whether they're in books or individuals or groups, and then taking action and being unwavering in that focus towards that vision. Now, one thing that you shared with me a couple of articles,
right.
and then of course,
I was just going to say real quick, is that to your point, is that that once you're investing in assets, you got to look at it to the CEO. The first asset you have is you. You are an asset. So then you've got to then focus on you becoming that asset and becoming the best version of you that you can be. So I just want to make sure that's the number one asset, and then you go from there. But go ahead. Yeah, I'm with you.
You're on it. No. Interrupt me anytime, because this is all about you sharing. This is about me illuminating what you've shared. And so here's something for people to just be aware of, mindful of, for those who may not know the data. This is at the tip of the iceberg. So one of the many policy groups, I don't know if I could see, if you can see, probably not see it very well, that this policy group has done a lot of work with researchers, with economists and others, Institute for Policy Studies, emphasis on prosperity now for everyone, but especially for Black and Latinos and other people of color, Native American, Pacific Islanders, Asians, etc., to ensure that this country actually has a middle class and everyone has the perspective and understanding and the resources available to actually pursue the kind of financial life that they want to live, meaning they can achieve their goals because they have the assets to get there. But this study that was done by an economist out of, I think it was New York, one of the New York universities, he found that overall, the median income for all folks within the United States has decreased, has declined by over $14,000. That's between 83, is that, and 2013. It's declined further, folks. Now it's declined more than that, significantly more for Black and Brown or Black and Latino when compared to white. Overall, wealth for whites went up, even though for many whites, that doesn't say very much because many whites are poor and their assets, whatever minimal assets they have actually declined. But on the whole, when we look at the data that's out there, we see a significant decline. And you're right, it's projected that by 2053, the wealth for Black and Latinos will be at zero, or in the case of Latinos, nearly zero, but for Blacks, at zero.
At zero.
Unless and until we take some strategic action to make some change. And I want to throw out a couple of things that you shared with me. So first of all, most people don't know, in San Jose, Silicon, considered to be a major part of Silicon Valley in the United States and California, for those who are viewing from other places on the planet, has had a recent history of only 2.5% Blacks. Most people don't know that. I didn't know that. I thought it was much more than that. But the decline of Blacks in this country has been significant, and has been the case since the early 80s across the state of California, but also across the United States. And so, but the key thing is that what's even more insidious is the significant decline in assets among Blacks and Latinos. And the significant amount of decline in assets is significant, and it's not just because of the historical systemic issues that we may touch on, you may touch on directly, Joel. But it reflected in one of the articles you sent me, was titled "Home Appraisal for Black Couple Skyrockets After White Friend Pretends to Be Homeowner." Let me tell you, I have a personal experience like that in 1982 when I went to rent a home in Rohnert Park, California, because I was newly hired at Sonoma State University. I went to a lovely place. They saw me and basically told me they had rented it. And for some reason, I felt kind of weird. So I told a colleague to go and check it out. The colleague, who's white, went there, beautiful, blonde hair, blue eyes. They told her it was available. But this article, that just came out this year, February 15, 2021, after an appraiser and the Austins' white woman pal met at their house, its value went up a whopping $493,000. Okay, that is not unusual, folks. That's part of that broad statement about redlining. The assets of Black, the darker hue people, literally are less valued, literally, not metaphorically. And the assets of whites have higher value. Now, there are good folks around the planet, certainly in this country, that Joel and I know, who are Black, who are brown, who are white, who are otherwise, who are Asian, who are Pacific Islanders, or Native Americans, who are literally working to make a change. And yet this conversation today is about our responsibility to make that change now. So with that as a context, Joel, can you share more details?
Yes, sir. So I want to add one thing, because I think sometimes we get lost in the numbers. So I'm just going to look at the impact that's going on right now. So to your point, those numbers are true, but the 1% now, because I don't want to get into median and average, because that's something else too. But right now, if we had 100 people on this call and we had a piece of pie, literally a piece of pie, one person, based on the numbers we have today, one person gets 40% of that pie to eat for him or herself. 9 people, the 10%, that's the 1 percentile. The next 10%, the 9 people out of that 100 get to divide 40% of the pie, which only leaves us with 20% of the pie, about that much of the pie, where the rest of the pie, 10% is taking that over, with one guy getting almost half the pie to himself, which is ridiculous, and 90 of us that are on this call out of the 100 are fighting over this right now. That's the wealth disparity that we have in this country right now. And for the first time in the history of the United States, we have the 1%, which is $11 million or more in net worth. And then you have now the 1% of the 1%, because if I'm Oprah Winfrey and I'm a billionaire, what is a penny to her on her dollar? Well, 1% of her billion is 10 million, which is a 1%. So we have a 1% of the 1%. But guess what, folks? We've got a 1% of the 1% of the 1%. We've got Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and Warren Buffett I think there's 4 people now that have over $100 billion. So 1%, a penny on their dollar is like, that's broke. Oprah Winfrey is broke compared to those guys. And I'm broke compared to Oprah Winfrey. So you've got, again, a 1% of 1% of 1%. That's how far we're, and it's leaving, and our middle class is going away because of it. Because right now, the 1% control 40% of America's wealth. So with all that being said, and you see the disparity that we have in our country, this is why we have to start talking about adopting the principles of how the wealthy think, understanding that our money now has to go into growing things. So no matter what's going on in our lives or how much money we make, some of it has to be put aside for growth, because the game has changed. You know, before we used to get our pension, we could work for a company, you know, retire at 65, 62, and for life, we got X amount of dollars, and that was enough to sustain living in the same house that we worked for 30 years that we were living in. Our lifestyle stayed the same, and really it wasn't that important. Wealth was not that important because I was happy. I worked for 30 years, give me my golden pen, my parachute, boom, I'm good. But pensions are gone, and 401ks are not pensions, and we've talked about all that stuff. So we now have to go into growth mode, thinking like the wealthy, like the rich, and just taking a piece of that knowledge and those principles that they use and are creating generational wealth, which that's another whole story, and applying that to our middle class lifestyle or our poor, broken, unwealthy, and then we'll be fine. And of course, you know, as with all the stuff that's going on the TV and Black Lives Matter and equal rights and equal this, let me tell you, I mean, and I'm all for that and I support it, but we need to realize we will never be equal until we are economic equals. Never. Until I have as much money as that person over there, whatever that may be, that's when I'm going to be treated as an equal, you know, because right now with BLM and all these things, we're basically asking for a seat at the table. Hey, man, you know, we need to be involved too. You need to include us, and boom, 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 which is all true. But believe you me, if I had as much money as they did, I wouldn't have to ask for a seat at the table. I'd have a reservation. And that changes the whole game. And throughout my life, I have found that where people look at me, initial reaction is, oh, you know, maybe I can help this guy out or whatever. And then we're comparing notes or whatever, boom, boom, boom. And maybe they run a background check on me and what have you. And it's like the game changes and the respect changes, which is horrible, but it's just life. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, maybe you can help me. You know, so it changes real quick. So that's really what we need to do again. And that's what this book is all about. Is I'm not going to tell you how to make your money or even how to grow your money. All I'm saying is that this is the mindset that you need in order to make these things happen.
So let's go into this 10 key steps. You call them steps. They're really concepts to implement.
Right.
To create and maintain wealth. 3, you consider them to be bonuses. Now let's talk about the first 7.
Okay. So again, basically you have to have the desire, right? If you don't have the desire to make a change in your life, to change your relationship, obviously, if you're not happy, and again, we're talking about money, folks. I want to be clear about that. And because if we bring in other things, it changes everything. We're just talking about money. If you don't like your financial situation, right? You're not happy with your financial situation, then as long as you have a desire to change that, that's step 1. And then step 2 would be discipline, being able to say, okay, I'm going to commit to this. Step 3, you're going to have to start becoming more frugal. Whatever your situation is, changing that and being able to extract money or save, which is step number 4, so that you can grow this money. With all that being said, the mother of all of them, which is 5, right in the middle, is that it all comes down to your plan. Talking to a financial advisor, talking to your rich aunt, you know, talking to whomever or whatever institution to help you with your plan. And again, which is 6, making sure that you've got help. Once you've established this plan or you've set these goals and objectives, that you have help somebody looking at another set of eyes, another set of ears, or what have you, to make that happen. And then before all those have to be done, because if you skip any one of those things, it's a recipe for disaster. So
And
I'm sorry.
the key thing about get help from individuals who've actually been successful doing what you want.
Please, please. Yeah. Don't talk to the drunk on the corner and ask him for help. So absolutely, yeah, that's what I meant. Is the rich aunt, right, or the financial planner, somebody that has a skill set in doing this, or at least to your point, a track record of showing success in money. You know, I tell people all the time, if I want to be a great swimmer, I'm not going to be hanging around a bunch of basketball players asking for advice. I'm going to go to the swimmer, hang around swimmers. And if you hang around a bunch of wealthy people, you start to acquire a wealthy mindset. You hang around a bunch of millionaires, you will be on your way to becoming a billionaire or a millionaire. But if you hang around a bunch of broke people, you're probably going to stay broke. So that help factor plays a big role. And I know as Black folks, we hate going for help. We hate it. Maybe it's been instilled since slavery that we're not supposed to work together or what have you. But man, first of all, I don't want anybody to know how much money I got, or that I'm hurting for cash, or blah, 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 blah. You know, so I've got this insecurity problem or whatever going. That stuff has to go away right now, because the only way that we're going to make this change is to be a whole lot more open and transparent. And I would throw this back at the parents as well, is that the problem with the generations that come after you is that you are not sharing your wealthy mindset, or just your relationship with money. It's none of my business. None of your business what my daughter or my son or anybody else in my family knows how much money I have or what I'm doing. And that is the worst thing you do, because now you're raising this child, sending them out in the real world, right? And the one thing that they don't know about money, because you didn't want to talk about it. It was none of their business, or blah, blah, blah. It is their business. They should know how much money you got in the bank. They should know what you're doing with your money as far as investments and have you. So that when they one day or go into the world of business, right? They get out of high school, they get their first job, or they start their first business, whatever they do, is that they have some kind of a familiarity with money and how it all works. And they're not just going, I don't understand what's going on, because that's a recipe for disaster as well. So
something else you said that I really value, and it's in the book, folks. It's a quick read, or you can even get it in digital format. It's very quick. And that is, be careful about how you communicate your own relationship with money to your children or to folks around you. Right. Because if you say money doesn't grow on trees, that suggests you have a negative relationship with money. If you indicate, you can, as a child, you could just plan to own your own business. Then you're suggesting to that child their power to lead, and lead with distinction. So I love that part of what you conveyed. Go ahead.
So again, the seventh step is invest. So all those things have to happen in order for you to invest. And if those things do not happen, any one of those goes awry, or you're like, I don't have to worry about this, whatever that one of those steps are, it's a recipe for failure right there. You've got to stick with those six: desire, self-discipline, frugality, save, plan, help. And then before you invest, you investigate, right? You do your best to hedge your bet, right? So because nothing's guaranteed, everything's a risk. I mean, getting out of bed in the morning's a risk, folks. So understand that. So before you invest, do the best that you can to investigate before you invest. And then, as Elnora said, 8, 9, and 10 are bonus steps, because you don't have to be an entrepreneur. I mean, 7 is basically, as I number these things, and I don't want to get too deep into it, but 7 is an employee that invests. The bulk of their money is coming in, their revenue stream is from their job, but they're taking money and investing it. And there's plenty of people out there that can be multimillionaires being an employee, because they're just taking their money and moving it over to something that's growing while they're still working in the workforce. 8 would be, an entrepreneurial person. So again, starting your own company and doing that. And then, of course, a 9 would be an investor that invests in 8s, and then 10 is someone that you don't want to be, which is about the same as being a 1. A 1 is a person who basically all they desire is to get high. That's it. All their money goes to getting high, and that's all they care about is one single thing, which is getting high, and they focus on that, and they do that until they die. And a 10 focuses on pure money, and everything's either an asset or a liability. They'll look at their relationship with their woman, their kids, their either you're making me money, or you are or of value, or you're not. And of course, who would want to be that kind of a person either? We all have 10 moments. We all are going to make decisions based on, and it could be that black and white through our lives, and maybe even through our week. But that you don't want to live there. You don't want to stay in that room. So that's basically what the whole.
Yeah, you were very mindful to indicate the importance of creative thinking and critical thinking throughout this whole process. And they can't be taken for granted. So I just wanted to highlight that as a compliment. You also emphasize the notion of O.W.N. It's an acronym, but it's also classic. O.W.N. You remember that?
Yes. And I stress that. So we talked about earlier, my going from how can I be the DJ on Friday and Saturday, I realized there was this process of ownership to give me the control to maintain me being the DJ, whether they liked it or not, right? So that wasn't even the issue. I just wanted the damn job. So I wanted to be that Friday, Saturday night DJ. But you've got to own. And again, you can be an employee. I'm not saying you have to own your company that you're working at. You've just got to take some of that money and put it into something that you own. And going back to this whole thing about the black wealth going away and the middle class going away, home ownership has gone down. And the number one for the middle class people, now we're talking specifically, the middle class, their number one asset is usually their home. Their net worth, 50% or more of their net worth is in their home. So if we are not buying homes and owning homes, it's going to be so much more difficult to create any net worth. And so this ownership, I use that acronym because one's wealth is in net worth. And the only way to increase your net worth is to own. And probably I would recommend starting with your home, because that's what's killing us faster than anything. We are down to, I think, 1935 levels, pre-civil rights and then some, going back to about 1935. That's about home ownership within African Americans right now, or right around the level that we were at in 1935. Yes. And that's what's got to change immediately.
And something that I wish I could remember her name. I can see her face very clearly, and her name will probably come to me right after this broadcast. So my apologies to her in advance. She was responding to folks around BLM, all powerful, and acknowledging their important work of protesting and then pushing for policy change, et cetera. And she says, the generation of all of us can change. I mean, life can change for all of us in just 1 or 2 generations. I'm not paraphrasing her very well. And that is by literally everyone having the right kind of cash accumulation life insurance. Poop overnight.
And that's certainly a way to do it. I was also I'm going to say that I'm going to go through this whole scenario real quick. I was talking to my daughter, and we were talking about the merits of going to college, and I won't get all deep in that. But what I was just showing is that just from a dollars and cents perspective, that I can show you how a high school dropout could become a multimillionaire faster than a college student. And we went through it. To make a long story short, I'll try anyway, is that I said, look, okay, the kid that you're going to school with quit school his junior year. So In-N-Out Burger, literally, I just saw this last week, $20 an hour they're starting kids at now, right? So it's 40 hours a week, that's $800 a week. If that guy took his just 10% of his money, $80 a week, and invested it into something that grew, let's say 10% a year, by the time he reached the age 65, Now I'm saying he didn't even get a raise. He's still, as I said, I call it the guy on fries. I wrote an article. I'm going to send it to you. It's actually pretty good. It's called the guy on fries. This guy literally stays on the fryer. You know, makes his $800 a week, $40,000 a year, and he's just taking that $80. This is the power of compound investing. It's going in there by year 5. He would have, if he would have saved the money, right? Because $4,000 a year is what he's saving. If he would have put that in the bank, year 5, he would have $20,000. But
minus inflation if it was in the bank.
That's right. But because he invested it and put it into something that was making 10% a year, he'd actually have $25,000. Now, at first you go, well, 5 years, that's a long time, and blah, 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 blah. And it is a time game. It's, you know, it's about time. But by 10 years, again, he would have 40,000, but now he's up to 67,000. Anyway, you get to when he's finally about 38 years old, and I was talking to my daughter, I said, look, so while he's making $40,000 a year, you're going to school paying $30,000 a year. She's going to San Luis Obispo and it's running us about 30 grand a year. So you're going to graduate negative 120,000. He's going to be at plus $200,000. And I said, so how much money are you going to make at your job? You'll make maybe 50% more than him. Okay, you're making $60,000. So you're making $20,000, 50% more than him, $20,000 a year. How many years is it going to take you just to catch up to the guy on fries? And she's like, you know, I said, 16 years. You're going to be 38 years old before you even tie this guy as far as making money. There's so many other reasons why to go to college. We're not going there. We're just talking about dollars and cents. So I said, now, if this guy just put away $80 a week while you're still going to school at that year 5, because remember, he started his senior year and then 4 years of college, he's already going to have $25,000 where you're still negative 120. So it's going to be hard for you to grow money if you're still paying off debt. So how many years is it going to take you to pay that off before you even have the opportunity to start growing money? So as I went through it, and I said, now, by the time he's 65 years old, granted, he's never left the fryer, he's never gotten a raise, he never worked any overtime, which is, of course, these are all farces. Of course, all these things would happen. But if he just did $80 a week, guess how much money you'd have at the age 65 to retire? He'd have over $4 million. He's a multimillionaire.
The power of compounding.
That's right.
And most people don't know that.
Get it.
And that's the power of what you're talking about. We can change the wealth equation. We must change the wealth equation, and we can do it in one generation.
That's
right.
We
don't have to be concerned about 2 or 3 generations.
Nope.
We have to change the mindset based upon real information, and the numbers are basic. I mean, what you did with your daughter is simple, elegant, and brilliant. And you say you're not smart. Yeah, right.
It's so simple. That's why I'm not, because you look at it, it's like, yeah, here's a guy again that never left.
This for those who are viewing. Joel, and I know you don't mind me saying this because you share it publicly, and I want people to hear it, especially those who didn't go to college or who barely made it out of college or went to college and never made it out. Joel barely made it out of college, right? From your own account. Yes. You earned a 2.2 GPA and graduated because some ombudsman, I can't even enunciate right now, gave you an out because you had failed in the area that you thought you'd be successful. But you didn't have a burning desire for what you were doing. No. You had a burning desire to be a DJ, to do all this other stuff, right? But the powerful thing that you did, that's a lesson for your daughter and the rest of us, but especially those who are in college or thinking about finishing high school, going to college or whatever, is that you did go to college, but while you went, you worked, but you worked in a different way. And you took your assets, your savings, because you didn't want to be that homeless person on the street, that hobo. You took your assets, and instead of renting a place, you bought a place. Right. And then you said, well, how do I sustain this? So what did you do? You rented out the rooms to other students. And then you realize, oh, this works. I could do this again. I could do this again. And before you knew it, without even planning it, you at least had millions of dollars of assets. So you bought a home for 100 and something, now worth over $1 million. Another
Right.
home for 200,000, now worth over $1.5 million. You just do that.
Right.
And so the genius is not in you literally knowing exactly where you're going to end up. It's being driven by some kind of burning desire. You
Right.
start it and you end it there.
Oh,
And
that's
that's
very
what's
true.
powerful.
That's
Everyone has some desire, even if it's just to be left alone.
right.
How do
That's
you
true.
how do you parlay that into something that's powerful? And that's the essence of what Joel and I want you to get. Yes, if we don't watch it, we collectively, the entire society doesn't watch it. The folks of color that too many people don't care about or want to go away literally would be the majority of this country in 2044, right? And
2053.
then 2044 will be the majority.
Oh, the majority. Yeah. Oh, the popular.
Majority
Yes, 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 yes.
in terms of numbers. And
Yes.
yet the majority needs to sustain what? The economic system. And already we have the interest on the national debt that can't be paid for by the taxes that are coming in. Already we've gone from 42 people who were working for one retiree when the Social Security was created down to less than 2.8 people working to one person retired.
No.
Not enough money.
Nope.
So something's got to give. Not enough money invested in Medicare and Medicaid. So if we're depending upon those folks in 2044, who's going to be the vast majority of folks of color, and we're saying we don't care about them, well, what are we saying for our economy? Our economy would be broken. Now, we can't allow that because we care about not just the economy overall, we care about ourselves, hopefully. We care about our families, hopefully. We care about our neighborhoods, our community, society, hopefully. So when Joel says, start with the mindset, leverage, 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 use your creative and critical thinking, build. It's not that difficult. He says in his humble way, I'm not that smart. I did it. He's a multimillionaire, folks. He doesn't walk away around and says that. He lives in a middle class a set of conditions because he's comfortable. Well, most people who are ultra wealthy don't try to wear the most brilliant whatever and drive the most whatever. They're also very comfortable. They're nonchalant. You wouldn't even know them in a grocery store. The point is, be careful about where you put your assets. Have them to begin with. And they start with you and they follow with whatever savings and they follow with whatever instruments you use to put your savings in so that the money works for you and you don't have to chase money.
True. Very true. Very well said.
And you said something that I think is powerful. You said broke is a temporary condition, right?
That is very true. Because that can change, like I said. So I want to say this. So if anybody, this little short story, The Guy on Fries, it's only like 6 pages. It's short. But it just really shows you. I mean, as clear as day, how anybody on a minimum wage job can become a multimillionaire, and it's so easy. And again, we're only talking about he's just calling up the Morgan Stanley or someone like yourself and saying, here's my money, take care of it. This person didn't have to think. They didn't have to invest the gate before they invested. They just said, okay, here's the money, grow it. I'll see you when I'm 65. And this guy continues to sit there and flip fries all day. And so again, it doesn't take a genius to become a multimillionaire. And to your point, it can happen in one lifetime and we can flip this thing just like that. We've just got to stop taking 100% or 99.9 of our money and blowing it and showing it. That's all. It's that simple. It's not brain surgery. It really isn't.
Something else I want to share. You said some people see a glass that has water and they see it as half empty. Some people see it as half full. Well, the wealthy see an opportunity.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
I think that's brilliant. And there are so many statistics out there that you could easily look at that would suggest doom and gloom. There's also enough substantive information from individuals like Joel, like you, Joel, who've demonstrated the dream is not only theoretical, it is practical.
Yeah.
You can make it happen.
No,
So let's
it's
go
so
from
easily attainable. Absolutely.
it
Absolutely.
is very easily attainable. But if your mindset says it's not, and one thing to remember, whatever you
It's
think
not.
is actually true.
Yeah.
If you
Very
think it's
true.
not possible, you're right.
No, that is very
The
true.
moment you think it's possible, then everything mobilizes. Your feelings, your attitude, your behavior mobilizes to make that real.
Yep. Your entire environment changes. Yep.
The people who
Absolutely.
come to you, who will call you on the phone, you're like, well, I was thinking about that. Where does this come from? You told the universe you were ready.
Mm-hmm. Very true. I like that.
So, Joel, it's an absolute honor. We just touched the surface with you.
Yeah, we did, but that's good. That's all. That's all we needed to.
And I want to thank your mom and dad for allowing you to even your spirit to come through them. I want to thank your siblings for being in whatever state they were to get you sufficiently comfortable and uncomfortable to be your genius self. I want to thank your all the loves of your life. I want to thank especially your daughter for always being there to challenge you so that you're even a better
Really
father.
good job with that.
And you wrote this book, I know, for her. So in doing that, I want to honor her and thank her for inspiring you to write it for her, because you are helping countless number of people who read this and get the essence of your truth.
Thank you.
And the
Thank you very
essence of truth, literally, folks, you can read Think and Grow Rich and find some of the same basic principles, because truth is truth. You can read The Science of Growing Rich and find the same basic principles. You can read a multitude of books.
much.
Truth is truth. What works, it works no matter what. Start with your dream. Follow. Can you end by telling us those 7 again so that people hear
Sure.
the
Sure.
7?
Is desire, self-discipline, frugal, save, plan, help, invest. And again, they can go to, I want to real quick plug this, WyrickRealEstateGroup.com under resources. You can order the book there. But I will also put this story, The Guy on Fries, which is,
Yes.
it breaks it down. It's hilarious. And then also a penny a day doubled. I do a thing on that as well. So that
Oh,
they can see
wonderful.
the real, I mean, growing money, compounding is that's it, really in a nutshell. And so I go through that. So, or you can email me at joel@WyrickRealEstateGroup.com and just say, Joel, can you email me a PDF on it? And I can do that as well. So, but I really want everybody to look at that Guy on Fries, because it really puts it into perspective of anybody can be a multimillionaire. A 17-year-old dropout can become a multimillionaire. And that's,
Okay.
and I spell it all out. You can't even argue it. You've been looking at it going, okay, I guess it works.
Marie Norris has said it. Love it. Tomoko writes, thank you for sharing, Joel. I noticed that about the middle class. Middle class makes the wealthy more wealthy, and brand name liabilities to show off money. A lot of marketing is geared towards the middle class. Yes.
All of it is.
Yes, yes. Dress for Success is a middle class model. This
Yep.
was very interesting. You said that. Say more, and you did. And then Marie Norris, just love this. Growing money is the key. Yep,
That's great.
you got it. Thank you so much. You are an absolute gem, and I'd love to have you back. In
Please,
fact,
love to be back.
Oh,
We can get into specifics then, and then we can really get in the crunch of things.
absolutely. Drill down into specifics. Well, it's an honor.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the
Your
opportunity.
brilliant self.
Great. Thank you much.
And thank you for living who you are. I mean, walking your talk.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Have a good day.
You too. Thank you all. I will see you next week, assuming that you're available again, but you certainly can check this out on Roku TV, Amazon TV, and of course, this will be uploaded to Facebook and YouTube. honor to be here with you, and it was such a joy to listen to a remarkable man share his truth in a way that can help us transform the nature of our economic reality right away.